So if you have an aging parent who's a primary caregiver, it can be hard to know what to do or say, what's actually helpful, what's not helpful. You don't want to add more on their plate. And it can leave you kind of feeling helpless or stuck and not knowing, how best to help. I'll say with caregiving, it really does take a village. Caregivers need support too. And so I'm delighted that you're here and interested in learning about what you can do to support your aging parent who's a primary caregiver. So here are 5 things that you can do to help. As we get started, I want to say that if you're supporting an aging parent who's a primary caregiver and they are caregiving a spouse, it can be really hard for the caregiver to ask for help. Sometimes we have a sense that if we're a spouse and we're caregiving for our partner, that this is what we signed up for. After all, we made a vow in sickness and in health. Caregivers notoriously put other people's needs above their own and have a hard time asking for help. So you being here, offering to help, is really, really important. So thank you for being here. All right. So the first thing that you can do to be helpful is just simply be there. Be present. You don't have to physically live near your aging parent who's a caregiver, but just be present and attentive. You could call regularly, see how they're doing, and check in with them. Caregivers often say, nobody asks me how I'm doing. I feel invisible to this illness or to the care that I'm providing. I'm only seen as a caregiver, no longer a person or a spouse or somebody, that has something to contribute outside of here. So just simply be there and see your aging parent for who he or she is. And by being there, you could also acknowledge how hard caregiving is, and also the rewards that caregiving is bringing. It can be hard for the caregiving parent to automatically see the rewards. So if you're noticing them, like, I notice you're so nurturing. I notice I think I'm really going to value this time that we have together. And so the more you can highlight the meaning and the benefit of caregiving, that could be very helpful. So be there, be attentive, acknowledge the struggle and the beauty in the caregiving relationship and what your older loved one who's a caregiver is bringing to that relationship. That's really important. And just simply knowing that you're there, can feel like an anchor. While imagine if your older loved one who's a caregiver had to do this all alone without anybody there, it could feel like you're sort of lost at sea, right? But having you there by their side can really feel like an anchor and kind of keep them rooted to the world outside of caregiving. So just be there. All right, number 2 is something more practical, which is to offer to research and arrange formal professional caregiving options. So sometimes with caregiving, the care needs get too much for one person to handle, and we might need home health assistance or adult day programs or respite care. So offering, even if you live far away, to research various programs available to help your aging parent with caregiving tasks can be very helpful. And this especially is a great project for an adult child who lives elsewhere. So what can happen is the aging parent who's a caregiver can say, well, I already have too much on my to-do list. I don't have the time to look into all these programs. I don't know how to kind of organize them or get them set up or tell if they're going to be any good. And that's where you come in. You can offer to help research these programs and see what might be helpful. Come up with a handful. You do the heavy lifting, you research, come up with a list of home health options, come up with a list of adult day programs or respite options. That can be super helpful. For respite options, I am going to link in the show notes a respite locator. And then if you're looking for other adult day programs or home health agencies near your loved one, for a home health agency, I would encourage you to contact the care recipient's primary care provider or primary physician and ask for a referral for home health. And that because it might be covered by insurance. So I would look into that through your medical provider first. If that's not an option through your medical provider, then you'll want to check out and contact your local area agency on aging. And you can find that by simply Googling elder care locator, elder care locator, and area agency on aging. And then you should find a link to plug in your zip code, and then you can contact the area agency on aging and ask for a list of adult day programs or home health aides if you need them. All right, so the third thing that you can do is to encourage your caregiving parent to get social support so that they're not always in this caregiving role. And by social support, you can encourage them to call up a friend and go out to lunch, a physically distant lunch, or you can encourage them, maybe you give your loved one a break to go to a church event or activity or another activity that's important, or perhaps you encourage them to attend a caregiver support group for the illness that their loved one is living with, that they're caring for. If it's a dementia support group, maybe through the Alzheimer's Association, a cancer support group, many of those are free. Most of them are free. Highly recommended that your caregiving parent get social support. The fourth thing that you can do is to encourage the caregiving parent to pay attention and attend to their own physical health as well. So this could be as simple as encouraging healthy meals, proper nutrition, maybe you mail or send a weekly meal to them. That's a nutritious meal. Maybe you encourage a daily walk or an outside activity and ask somebody to come and sit with your older loved one so that the caregiving parent can take a walk. Another way that's really important to attend to physical health is for your caregiving parent to also attend their own medical appointments. And so this might be challenging, especially if they're caregiving for somebody who cannot be left alone any longer. And so maybe helping your caregiving parent to brainstorm who could be there with the person who's receiving care, who can be helpful during that time. And so perhaps if you live nearby, you could be that person to sit there while your caregiving parent goes to their own doctor's appointments. And the fifth way that you can be helpful is to pay attention to how your loved one is doing emotionally. So caregivers have higher rates of stress and depression. And it's really important that caregivers also get support, professional support like therapy or counseling if they're struggling with stress and depression. And now with telehealth options, that can be so much easier for caregivers as well, especially if they can't leave their loved one, if their loved one needs 24/7 care and they can't leave. That's in the past has really caused a barrier for mental health care for many caregivers, but now that's not a barrier any longer. If you're noticing signs of depression, encouraging your older loved one, the caregiver, to get help for depression as well. There is a common misconception that depression is normal when we get older and that depression cannot be treated when we're older, but that is wrong. Depression is not a normal part of aging, and depression is one of the most treatable conditions among older adults. And I'll tell you, depression is as treatable in older adults as it is in younger or middle-aged adults. It's highly, highly treatable. So if you'd like tips for caring for your aging parents, download my free Caring for Aging Parents checklist. I linked to that in the description of this video. And share this video with other people who it might be helpful, in their own caregiving or supporting a caregiver's journey.